In the waning years of the Roman Republic, a time when power was as fluid as the Tiber River that coursed through the heart of the city, Julius Caesar emerged as a figure of remarkable ambition and undeniable talent. Born into the patrician class, Caesar was shaped by the political turbulence of his youth. The Republic, once a bastion of shared governance, was fraying at the edges, torn apart by civil strife, class conflict, and the ever-looming specter of dictatorship. Caesar's early career was marked by a blend of military prowess and political acumen. He deftly navigated the complexities of Roman politics, aligning himself with powerful allies like Pompey and Crassus in the First Triumvirate. This alliance, born of mutual benefit, was a strategic maneuver that allowed Caesar to bolster his position within the Senate while simultaneously amassing military strength. However, as history would reveal, the bonds of ambition are often as fragile as they are potent. The turning point came with the death of Crassus, which destabilized the triumvirate and reignited the rivalry between Caesar and Pompey. With Rome teetering on the brink of chaos, the Senate, now increasingly wary of Caesar's growing influence, sought to curtail his power. They demanded that he relinquish command of his legions and return to Rome as a private citizen. To Caesar, this was not merely a political maneuver. It was an existential threat. He had tasted the intoxicating power of command and was unwilling to surrender it without a fight. Thus, in a fateful decision that would echo through the annals of history, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BCE, uttering the fateful words, "The die is cast." This act of defiance was not just a military maneuver. It was a declaration of war against the Senate and the very principles of the Republic. It marked the beginning of a civil war that would engulf Rome, pitting Caesar's loyal legions against those of Pompey, who had aligned himself with the Senate in a desperate bid to preserve the Republic. The war raged across the Italian peninsula, and Caesar's military genius shone brightly. His campaigns were characterized by swift maneuvers and decisive victories as he outwitted Pompey at every turn. The most notable of these was the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE, where Caesar, facing a numerically superior force, employed cunning tactics that led to a resounding victory. Pompey fled to Egypt, seeking refuge, but his fate was sealed when he was betrayed and assassinated, leaving Caesar as the unrivaled leader of Rome. With Pompey vanquished, Caesar returned to Rome, greeted by adulation and triumph. His reforms were sweeping, aimed at addressing the social and economic inequalities that had plagued the Republic for decades. He initiated land redistribution, reformed the calendar, and expanded the Senate. Though many of these actions were seen as consolidations of power rather than genuine attempts at reform. His populist policies endeared him to the masses, but alienated the traditional elites of the Senate, who viewed him as a tyrant in the making. As Caesar's power grew, so too did the apprehension among the Senate. The echoes of his victories were drowned out by whispers of conspiracy. The Senate, once a bastion of Republican ideals, became a cauldron of resentment and fear. Prominent senators, including Brutus and Cassius, who had once been allies, found themselves grappling with the notion of loyalty versus the preservation of the Republic. They believed that Caesar's ambition threatened to extinguish the very freedoms that the Republic had fought to uphold. In the Ides of March, 44 BCE, the conspirators put their plan into motion. They approached the Senate with a facade of normalcy, masking their true intentions. On that fateful day, as Caesar entered the Senate chamber, he was met not with the reverence he had grown accustomed to, but with a chorus of daggers drawn. The betrayal was swift and brutal. Caesar fell to the ground, surrounded by those he had trusted, his lifeblood staining the marble floors of the Senate. His last words, whether they were "Et tu, Brute?" or a silent gasp of disbelief, remained shrouded in the mists of time. But the impact of his assassination was immediate and profound. The death of Julius Caesar did not restore the Republic. Instead, it unleashed a torrent of chaos. The conspirators, believing they had saved the Republic, found themselves engulfed in a power struggle. Mark Antony, a loyal supporter of Caesar, rallied the people against the conspirators, igniting a wave of civil unrest. The streets of Rome, once filled with the echoes of Republican ideals, became battlegrounds for power-hungry leaders. In the ensuing conflict, the Republic continued to fracture. The Second Triumvirate, composed of Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, emerged to fill the power vacuum left by Caesar's demise. However, the seeds of discord were sown deep, and the rivalry between Antony and Octavian culminated in the naval battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Octavian's victory marked the end of the Republic and the dawn of the Roman Empire, with him as its first emperor, Augustus. Caesar's legacy was thus a paradox. He had sought to reform the Republic, but instead set in motion its ultimate demise. His life and death encapsulated the tumultuous struggle between ambition and the ideals of governance, a struggle that would resonate throughout history. The Republic, once a symbol of shared power and civic duty, was irrevocably altered, paving the way for an imperial Rome that would dominate the ancient world for centuries to come. In the end, Julius Caesar was not merely a man of his time. He was a catalyst for change, a figure whose ambition illuminated the fragility of republican ideals. His rise and fall serve as a timeless reminder of the delicate balance between power and responsibility, a lesson that reverberates through the corridors of history, echoing in the hearts and minds of those who dare to dream of greatness.